soybean and soybean oil, okay? And then the spread will be unit quantity of soybean and unit quantity of soybean oil, and you take the difference between the prices. This is the spread. So here I'm not talking about the ask-bid spread, bid-ask spread. This sounds a little better, bid-ask spread. But we are talking about two perhaps closely related items, and then the difference between the unit prices. That's a spread. Now this example of soybean is, here they are pretty closely related. So that's no big deal. But a very smart entrepreneur might see some vague connection between the price of soybean oil and the price of corn. Which I am unable to see, but it's his business to look for spreads which are promising. You can exploit them and develop a new type of business. You see, so I'm trying to think of arbitrage and think of spread in a most general setting. So that's the concept of a spread. And the next concept I want to explain is the straddle. These terms come from the trade. Speculators in the commodity markets. We talk about straddles, and the straddle has a long leg and a short leg, and it's called a straddle because you enter them either simultaneously or not simultaneously, and that means long leg means an outright buy. You are buying something. But more typically, it's a commitment to buy, not necessarily a buying on the spot, but a commitment to buy, or the liquidation of a commitment to sell. These are all under the concept of long leg, okay? And a short leg is the opposite. A short leg could be an outright sale, but more typically it is a commitment to sell at a pre-agreed price. Sell in the future, but at a price, at the spot price now. So, as I say, it's a commitment to buy, or it could be the liquidation of a commitment to sell. So you see, we are widening the concept in every reasonable way to make the theory useful. So now what is happening is that there is the vertical structure and the horizontal structure of classifying goods. The vertical structure is due to Böhm-Bawerk, who introduced the idea of degree of goods. What happens is that in the production process, you start with something produced by the, what's the word for either mining or agriculture? There is a word for that. Their produce is primary, which is not preceded by previous production, because, and that could be agriculture or mining or some such thing. Okay, so, and a consumer good which is ready for sale to the ultimate consumer, he calls first degree good, okay? And the semi-finished good, which goes into the first degree good, is called second degree. And this way you go higher and higher. At the highest level would be this primary. But we are not really concerned with that. I'm just putting it into context. So Böhm-Bawerk introduced this degree. The first degree is the closest to the consumer. And then the degree itself shows how many steps this semi-finished good will go through before it becomes a final good which is ready for sale to the ultimate consumer. Okay? So we call this vertical because if we just represent them, then this shows the line of production, how these semi-finished goods get closer and closer to the consumer, and the degree gets lower and lower, because the degree shows the remoteness of the semi-finished good from the consumer. See, all production has a purpose to satisfy some demand, which is ultimately consumer demand. And that's the vertical structure. Now there is also a horizontal structure, and as a result of the two, you have this what looks like a net or a cobweb or something like this. What is the horizontal structure? Well, two goods are horizontally related if they have the same order, but the outcome is different. The ultimate consumer good is different. So if you take all the first degree goods which you find in the stores, which is ready for sale by the ultimate consumer, well, that would be one layer. And then there would be second degree goods, would be another layer, third degree goods, and so on. You see? Now then, you can talk about horizontal straddles and vertical straddles. I already mentioned the horizontal straddle is when a house, or comes about when a housewife is changing the brand she's using for whatever purpose. But also a producer is on the watch that what is his input in his production line could be changed, either for reasons of different quality or different price, and the same output. You know, one input could be substituted by something different, and the output will still be the same. But there would be a purpose served by changing the input, either making the product cheaper or different, higher, lower quality, or many other different reasons. So when the entrepreneur, producer, discovers a promising spread, he puts on a straddle. You see? In a competitive environment, this could be very important, because if you set yourself up that you are manufacturing bicycles, for instance, and you think that it's a good strategy to keep the same input forever, you are probably not going to succeed in that business, because your competitors will look for profitable spreads, which suggests switch from an item input, replace it, so that's a straddle, and then he becomes more competitive. So for this reason, it's very important to look at the production in this sense. It's not a set stream going from semi-finished to finished goods, because there are many, many variations on the way, and sometimes these are very surprising to most of us, outsiders. We don't see why the producer all of a sudden decides that a certain, I don't have ready examples, but probably every one of you could make up one. Here. Take the producer, he has his set ways of doing business, and there is a more dynamic guy in the market competing, selling the same product, who is much broader minded, and he wants to change, making the goods cheaper and better, what he says. And as a consequence, he is looking for spreads. If the spread is wide, it's more promising than if the spread is narrow. Why? Because during the production process, when you address a spread, the result will be a narrowing. Because what you are buying, your input, let's assume that several producers are addressing or attacking the same spread, then it means they are bidding well, how is that?
They're bidding it up. They're bidding the price up to the limit.
There's no limit.
They're closing by their own action. They're closing.
Oh yeah, okay. So as these producers are addressing the same spread, they are increasing the price difference. Okay, and when they are selling the same, they are decreasing that. So in this case, we have to assume that the unit price in one case is lower and the other is higher. So, but that is not important because it all depends on the choice of the unit. So let's just say that the spread is narrowing. And as the spread narrows, the profitability of this particular production is diminishing. So the producer is on the lookout for wide spreads, and when he sees the possibility of substituting, then he will make the switch. So this could be a vertical spread, it could be a horizontal spread, and it could also be a combination of the two. You see, so then you have diagonal straddles. That's also possible. So what I'm suggesting is that this is a very powerful way of looking at the production. And this is the switch from the old model, which is the equilibrium, to the disequilibrium, is like switching from a black and white TV to a colored TV, or even a three-dimensional TV, because a lot of things are ignored by the equilibrium theory, which can be taken care of by this equilibrium theory. Just to give you one example, the equilibrium theory ignores the possibility that the producer would deliberately change the input. It's just a one-dimensional picture. There's no horizontal and vertical structure. It's just input, output, and a straight movement. And in actual fact, the producers are looking at variations of input, but also variations of output. Because, for example, a producer discovers that if he replaces if he replaces the old design of his final product slightly, which makes it possible for him to cut the price, the consumers will still respond. Because, you know, you could put some embellishment on the final product. And then if the consumers are very price conscious, they wouldn't care for this embellishment, which is not basically necessary for the use of the final product. And then he changes his output and still meet the same demand. Or he can, for instance, he has been, let's talk about Coca-Cola, for example. The Coca-Cola company has been selling the same Coca-Cola for half a century. And then one of the managers suggests, why not introduce light Coke, which is basically the same but replacing sugar with some kind of artificial sweetener. So this is like a slight change in the output. Now, there are similar examples where here, instead of one brand, the company is offering two brands. But it could also be the case that one brand is simply discontinued and a similar brand is introduced instead. So that's really variation at the output. For the reason could be different. Could be making it cheaper, making it more attractive, and so on. So these are deliberate changes in the input and the output for some purpose. And what you should see is that the old-fashioned supply-demand equilibrium theory is not able to handle these deliberate changes in input and output. You've got to go to Menger's disequilibrium theory, because the equilibrium theory is one-dimensional, black and white, insensitive to many things. But the disequilibrium theory can catch all these more refined things, points, and as a result, it's much closer to reality. Well, I guess we could take a
Yes.
break.
It's time for a coffee break. Let me just mention there is a list that circulates with emails. You have it there. You will receive the slides on the previous presentation, and perhaps I may add, I have made a presentation on the disequilibrium, on the consumer goods last year in Budapest.
Oh,
I may just as well throw it in.
and you can,
Yeah, I'll circle. I'll send it.
and oh, you send it via.
Send it to everybody who's on the list.